Hey guys, it's Kat and I am back for a very exciting review. So I've got a new palette to review. You might be saying, Kat, you're on a no-buy. Yes, I am, but I got an early Christmas present from my good friend Hayley, and it happened to be the palette that I'm most lusting after, and of course, I bought her one for Christmas too. So technicality, not a purchase, Christmas present, which is great. And we gave it to each other early enough so we can play with it and review it, and I'm very, very excited. So this is the current holiday palette from NARS, so the 2021 palette. It is currently available. If you're interested in it, I got mine from Mecca in Australia, but you can get it from wherever you get NARS. And in Australia, this retails for 84 Australian dollars, but I will link a few places and you can check how much it costs in your currency. Anyway, I've been lusting after this palette. I've been thinking about it every day for at least a week when I actually saw it in store, and I am obsessed with it. So it's got cardboard. The packaging of the palette is actually very cool. I like this. It's a very, very reflective silver packaging, and then it looks like there's almost like black and white NARS ribbon just sort of wrapped around it, but it's not. That's just part of the packaging. So it's an interesting design choice. It sort of matches the box. I think the packaging looks a lot better than the box, which is what I like. I don't like it when the box looks cool and the packaging looks sad. This is really cool. I'm digging this. Now, if you've seen the promo photos of this, like what it looks like inside, I can tell you in person, it is a lot better. There are these gorgeous sparkly shades up here. You can't see them on camera at the moment, but hopefully you'll see when I swatch and when I also apply these. This looks really bland on camera. In person, this is beautiful. There's a cool toned column, a warm toned column. So it's like half nude palette, half color palette. Then we've got more of a berry red column, more of a copper and sort of grungy green column. And it's all sort of wearable color. So I call it wearable color because it's more muted. And these are sort of colors that you can either amplify a look or add a little bit of interest in the outer corner or lower lash line. It's not super, super vibrant color. It's color you can wear to the office if that's what you choose to do. But what I like about this palette the most is the different textures. There's mattes, there's shimmers, what looks like possibly satins, and then these beautiful sparkly shades. I will try to capture the sparkle and put something over me talking right now because the sparkle is what makes this palette really, really intriguing. It's also what makes this palette, in my opinion, a really great holiday palette. I do love sparkle all year round, but I feel like you can often get the more interesting sparkly shades at holiday time. So I sort of stock up on holiday time where I see these cool formulas and I wear them throughout the year. So what I'm going to do in this video today is I'm going to put some of this on my eyes. I think I might go for like focus on the warm column because that's where some of the really interesting glitter shades are. But I will also check back with 3 other looks featuring the other columns. So I want sort of one look to focus mainly on these, one on that, one on that, one on that. I might delve into other shades to complete the look, but I sort of want to use the full column in each look. So that's what this review is going to be. And then at the end, I'll let you know what I think about this palette after using all shades. So this is how the first column picks up, and I will swatch them in columns. All right, so first is this beautiful sort of champagne. It's a very shimmery shade, but it's not quite sparkly. It's very, very sort of metallic shiny though. We've got this beautiful sort of iridescent. It's almost got a peachy shift to it. It looks champagne straight on, but there is like a peach element, which is really pretty. There's a matte sort of taupey shade and a darker shimmery brown. Really, really pretty for every day. I'd wear this like every day. Second column, you can see we've got some of those really, really sparkly shades. This pink one here is like a pink to gold shift. We've got more of a satin and a matte. So that's what the second column looks like. Oh, gorgeous. And that's not like gouging my fingers in, that's just rubbing my fingers. These are a little bit flakier because they are so sparkly, but they're so pretty. These will also swatch a lot better over glitter glue, but I want to just do it on my bare skin so you have a good idea of how it performs. That's gorgeous. So front on it looks pink. From my angle that looks sort of copper gold. Really, really pretty. Then we've got more of a satin. So that's more of a subtle sort of orangey shade and a darker matte brown. Kind of similar to this one, but a little bit red here. These are beautiful. These will be my everyday makeup. I love NARS quality. I think they're really flattering on the eyes, and I'm so excited to see NARS delve into sort of this texture. All right, third column, we also have a very sparkly shade, not as flaky and glittery as the last one, but very similar to the first shade that we swatched, that sort of champagne shade. Then we have a typical shimmer and a couple of mattes. All right, that's beautiful. That's a really beautiful shade, swatches really nicely. This is more like a topper purple. It's very, very sheer. So this would be nice as a topper, but I feel like you can also build it up to get more color, so I might do that now. All right, let's see if it builds. Yeah, so it's very translucent, but it's a nice soft sort of shimmery purple. We've got more of a berry red matte and a dark brown. All right, last row, this is the sort of grungy greens and that copper sparkle. This also has some pink sparkle in it, so it's almost got two different colors that sort of complement, and the rest. I've got a matte here, a traditional shimmer, and what looks like a dark brown satin. All right, sparkle time, yeah. See, that would go beautifully on a sticky base. It's just a little bit too flaky for unprimed skin, but it is nice. That one looks a bit sad. I feel like I didn't pick up enough. This shade does pick up quite nicely, but the pan is a little bit firmer, so you can see that it does look really nice once you sort of pick up the product. This is that dark green shimmer, nice. And that sort of satin dark brown. That one also looks a lot sheerer than I sort of expected. I'll just build that one up a little bit more, but that definitely has a bit of a shine to it. So this one's a little bit more of a dirty color, whereas this is more of a berry brown, and this one looks like it can be applied sheerly or built up, and it's got a little bit of luminosity to it. And I always like to show you the palette after I've swatched it to see if there's any like a lot of kick up, any gouged in pans, any like crazy flakiness. Little bit of flakiness here, but that's just the nature of these really, really shimmery shades. The rest you can see they're not chalky, they're not flaky. They are very neat, which I like. All right, now time for the look. I'm just going to use my MAC Painterly Paint Pot as a base. Now I do also have some glitter glue as a backup in case those sparkly shades don't grip very well, but I do like to start with just a sort of standard base to see how they apply. All right, call me crazy, but I do want to try the two glitter shades, and I don't want to put them either side each other, like half on the center of the lid, half on the outer corner, because these are sort of almost duochromy. This one is definitely duochrome, it's pink to gold. This one's more gold, and it's almost got a slight green shift to it. So I want to see how these perform on their own. So I'm going to do one on one eye, one on the other, and then blend them out with these shades. So I might actually start with this orangey shade, which is like a satin, and I'm going to put that just on the inner corner and outer corner, and then do almost like a halo effect using these one on each eye. This is actually a really pretty orange. I don't usually use these shades just on a daily basis, but this one, you know, it's quite subtle, so it's not really, really pigmented, but it applies really nicely. Like it's blending itself. It's looking really even. Really gorgeous, and a nice sort of iridescence to it. Might just run that on the lower lash line as well. If you like orange tones, that could definitely be a one and done sort of eyeshadow shade, because it has a little bit of a luminosity to it, but it could also work as sort of like a matte in the crease. So just, yeah, you could put it all over your lid really easily, and I think it'd be a beautiful shade. All right, let's try to tap on the first sort of really gold shade on this eye. Again, if it doesn't stick super well, I'm going to try it with the glitter glue. Ooh, this is super twinkly. So it's not really, really bold. It creates this beautiful sort of twinkly effect, which I also like. I think this sort of effect as a topper is glorious, but I do want to get more intensity out of it. But I'm going to use one of my glitter glues to really ramp it up. So I'm using my Too Faced glitter glue. It's one that I've had for ages. I love it. It's works so well, but if you want a cheaper alternative, the NYX glitter glue is very, very similar. So all you really do is squeeze out a small amount And I would suggest not to use this as your normal base for normal eyeshadows because it's very, very sticky. So if you put like mattes over the top, it grips it in certain areas. So I like to exclusively use this for shimmers or for sort of sparkly shades. I may as well just put some on here as well because I'm well aware that I'm going to use glitter glue on that side too. So it's translucent, and if you tap it on, it doesn't disrupt the eyeshadow underneath. But if you sort of rub it too much, it will. But yeah, it's going to stay sticky until I set it with shimmer. So going back in with the same shadow, same brush, and we'll just see the difference. So I'm just taking this quite slowly because I don't want to sort of rough up the pan too much because it is a little bit flaky, but you can see that all of a sudden that is a lot more intense and gorgeous. And for experimental reasons, I'm going to try it with my finger just to see if we can get more of a metallic sort of effect. And you sort of can. It's very, whoa, very intense. Look at that. All right, I've just cleaned off my brush. I'm going in with that pink sort of gold shifting one. There you go, gorgeous. Very different color, but very similar effect. So this one's a little bit more, I don't know, it looks a little bit more nude on me because it sort of matches my skin tone a bit better. It's got those pinky tones, but they're both very beautiful. And again, I'm going to use just a little bit on my finger. This is very, 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 very similar to MAC Stylishly Merry. So if you missed out on that holiday eyeshadow a few years ago, that one is like a Stylishly Merry dupe, whereas this one is very gold with a hint of green. So they are very different. I'm just taking some of that satin orange shade and I'm going to just blend out the crease a little bit more. This shade, even though it does have a bit of a sheen to it, it is gorgeous in the crease. Then I'm just going to use just a standard pencil brush and use this matte sort of terracotta shade just to deepen the outer corner and lower lash line a little. This is gorgeous. These perform so nicely. I'm really impressed with NARS eyeshadows these days. I'm never disappointed. All right, so that's the eyeshadow done for today. I'm going to go and do some liner and mascara, but you can definitely tell that in this column, you can get complete looks using just those shades. I really like both the effects of these. I can't pick which one I like more. I think they're really, really beautiful, and I think the shades all behaved really, really nicely. The matte and the satin are really beautiful sort of everyday standard formulas. They're not super, super, super pigmented, but they blend really nicely. They apply really evenly, and you can build them up if need be. And of course, the shimmers, they're really pretty, get like a twinkly effect just on a normal primer. But if you want to ramp it up, either use your finger and then use a sticky base like a glitter glue, and you get this really sort of beautiful twinkly effect. Holy moly, I love this. I love everything about it. I love both looks. With a little bit of brown liner, I just used Urban Decay, what is this? Double Life. I use that on my waterline, and then a bit of Steeler. It's just a mini mascara. I just thought I'd zoom out so I can show you the effect zoomed out. I love it. It's great. I can already tell that this is going to be one of my favorite palettes of the year. It is sort of like everyday, but also a little bit special, and that's what I love. And I'll be back tomorrow rocking another column, and I can't wait. I sort of want to wipe my makeup off and do another look. That's how much I'm looking forward to using this palette again. All right, I'm back with my mate Elmo for look number 2 from the Bijoux palette. I didn't even mention the palette name. It's the Bijoux palette. Today I decided to go for the cooler toned column. So this column here, and I've used all 4 shades. So I'll just explain what I did and then I'll zoom in and show it to you. I used this sort of more subtle shimmer, so the one that has that slight peachy tone on the inner corner, and I sort of diffused it out a bit so it really brightens that area. This would be a good shade for any sort of subtle highlight or like brow bone highlight. It's not too glittery. Well, it's not glittery at all. It's not too metallic. It's one of those more subtle, soft sort of highlight shades. Then I used this darker brown on the rest of the lid and lower lash line. So pretty much 1/3 was the highlight shade, and then 2/3 of the eye was this dark brown, and I put that over just my regular MAC Painterly Paint Pot. I blended all of that out with a taupey mauve shade, and then I tapped a little bit of glitter glue just on the center of my lid and put that really shimmery shade because I wanted that to sort of stand out. All right, I'm not sure what I was up to because I had a monkey wake up. But yeah, so the shimmery shade, I think that's what I was talking about. The shimmery shade can be a lot more subtle just on a normal base, but I really wanted to make it stand out from the other shimmers that I sort of layered it on top of. Really pretty cool tone look. I can rock it with a red lip, Christmas time. I get the festive vibe of this, but it's also very wearable for every day. And if I didn't use the glitter glue, this would just be like a nice cool toned shimmer that you can just, you know, wear any day. All right, so hopefully you can see close up, there's that brown, there's that sort of more subtle, slight peachy toned highlight. I think I also put the really sparkly one on the lower lash line in the center as well, but it really catches a light and just makes it a little bit more sparkly and special. But again, you can tone that down if you want to. All right, back with look number 3, and I'm just going through the palette. So I've used all 4 shades on that column there, and I also used this matte just to blend it out a little bit. So I only wanted to use normal primer today, so I used my MAC Painterly Paint Pot as per usual. I didn't want to use glitter glue because I didn't want all my looks to need glitter glue to get the finish that I was sort of creating. So this is just all on a normal primer. I actually really love this look. Probably not with this lip, I think it's a bit too full on, but what can you do? So yeah, I used this shade all over the lid, which is a shimmery, I would say it's like a plum. It's like a brownie. I think it's a little bit warmer than a mauve, so it's a little bit plum-like, but it's like a, yeah, taupey plum, I guess. Very, very pretty. It is quite shiny. It's not as sparkly as these other shades, but it's quite similar in formula to this one here. Then I used this purple on the lower lash line. It is a very subtle purple, but I think it's really, really pretty. I think also this would be really nice tapped over, maybe like a matte or something, just to add a little bit of a luminosity to it. And that would be something that I'd love to try in future looks. I do want to limit this to only 4 looks so I can get it up quickly, but I think like this tapped over this, or even the red, I think it would add this really beautiful sort of shimmery element to it. Now I was actually looking at the Temptalia review of this palette, and she did give this shade like a C or something quite low, whereas everything else got a fairly good rating. Now I feel like a lot of reviewers, and I get it, I understand the temptation to do this, but I feel like a lot of people put so much emphasis on pigmentation. So if it's not opaque in pigmentation, it's a bad eyeshadow. I totally disagree with that. I think this is designed to be more of that topper, to add just a bit of a shine to it. You can see it's sort of red with that purpley sort of shift to it. So I think it works well as a topper, and I also think it works well on its own as sort of a subtle shimmery purple. Personally, I'm not a big fan of really, really bold purple. I like purple as an accent color, not an all over eyelid color. So for me, I actually like the sheerness of it. I think it makes it a lot more versatile, and it means I can use it in sort of larger areas. If I want to build it up, I can. If I want to sheer it out, I can. So I actually quite like it. Then I put the matte red shade in the outer corner, so you can mainly see it when I'm facing front on, and you can see it just like deepening the outer corner. Then I use this bottom sort of dark plummy shade, plummy brown shade, as my winged liner. I didn't want to add it anywhere else because again, the look was getting quite dark. It's quite a dark column, but I did want to use all the shades. And then of course I've blended it out with that matte shade that I mentioned. So all the shades, in my opinion, applied really nicely. And again, I think that purple is just going to come down to personal preference and how opaque you want your eyeshadows. I do think NARS can be quite restrained with some of their shades, so they can be quite bold in pigmentation on some, and then there's others that they purposefully make a lot sheerer just so it's a little bit softer or more versatile. So the purple is a little bit more like the formula of this shade here, where it's that soft, subtle shimmer that has a little bit of luminosity to it, but nothing full on. Also, what I think the Temptalia review and other reviews that sort of don't like sheerer eyeshadows tend to ignore is that when you do apply them, so that's the only color on the lower lash line, I sort of brought it up to the side. So you can see the purple is all down there. I've got the brown as a winged liner, which worked really nicely as a winged liner. I didn't wet it, I just applied it dry. And then I have the red and that sort of plummy taupe color on the top lid. You can see that the purple is mainly a bit of brightness, a bit of iridescence. And bugger it, I'm going to take a little bit of that purple on my finger, just a little bit, and just see the effect that it gives if I just tap a little bit, because I think this is what it's designed for. I think it's more of a topper, beautiful sort of subtle shimmer, which I think is pretty. So all of a sudden, I'll turn that down a bit. All of a sudden that's a lot more purple. And I like it. I think it's a versatile shade. All right, I'm back with look number 4, and it's the final look I'm going to do for this video, just because I want this video up while this palette is still around. I definitely could do like 7 looks with it. I do think mixing the different rows, you can get a lot more effects, obviously. But today I decided to use this row, and I have to say it's the hardest row to use. This palette isn't really designed to be used in rows. It's just how I wanted to break it down, because I could see some distinct color stories. But the issue I'm having with this row is these are very, very dark shades, and they're all sort of the same tone of dark, or the same depth of dark, and that's very limiting. And I feel like this sort of corner here, that's where we lack some versatility, and it starts getting a little bit redundant. But I'll talk about that in my conclusion, which will be after I show you the look I'm wearing. So what I did, I had to delve into some other shades just to brighten this look up, because it was so dark. So I started with this shade in the crease just to set my base. I applied some of this in the inner corner. Then I used the matte pretty much all over the lid, on the lower lash line. I also used this mixed a little bit with the orange, just to sort of blend out the look a little bit more, to blow it out. Then I used this shimmery green, which is pretty much the same shade, just a different finish, which I'm not a big fan of. And I put that on the lid, but it was looking so dark and smoky that I had to go back over with this coppery sparkle and tap it on the lid. The good thing about that, it's added this really cool dimension. So when you zoom in, you'll see it almost looks like a duochrome, because when it catches the light, it looks like this color, but when it doesn't catch the light, you see the dark green. So I do think that these shades do work well together, but these are very, very dark. With this shade, it's also a dark shade, but it's a dark brown. So it's just the same tone, but a different color. I decided to use it as a small wing just to sort of add something to the look. And I also put it in my brows. This is actually my perfect brow color, so there's that. But I also had to go in with this highlight on the lower lash line just to brighten it, because again, it was looking very, very dark and smoky. So that's what I did today. I'll zoom in and show it to you, and then I'll tell you what I think about the palette overall. So yeah, I don't mind this look. I think that all the shades performed well, but I feel like this column is the hardest to use if you do want to stick to sort of color stories. All right, I'm back with one bonus look to conclude what I think about this palette. I didn't want to leave it on the last look because I didn't love the last look. I didn't mind how the copper and the deeper sort of green tones work together, but it was just too dark and not really my cup of tea. So I wanted to create something with all parts of the palette that is sort of more my vibe. So I won't go into heaps of detail on what I've used, because I sort of layered different things, but I definitely used this in the crease. I used that all over the lid. I used the gold sparkle sort of laid on top, some of the shimmery brown in the outer corner, and I sort of blended it out with those two shades there. So I sort of went into different elements of the palette, and I didn't use that row today. So that's what I'm wearing. And just a quick zoom in case you wanted to see it close up. All right, so overall, I'm happy to say that I really dig this palette. I really like it. It's something that I am really excited to use, and I'm glad that I have it. Now, I've had a lot of palette fatigue in the past year or two, so even though I have been trying palettes here and there, it's not something I'm passionate about. It's not something that I'm like raving about, and more often than not, I'm sort of more disappointed in the palettes than excited for them, but this has definitely broken that pattern, and I'm so glad I got it. So if this is something that you're at all interested in, I would encourage you to swatch it in store and have a look for yourself and buy it before it sells out, because I do feel like this will sell out this year. But I want to talk about my sort of pros and cons about this, because of course there are pros and cons It's an eyeshadow palette. It's not a perfect thing in the world. So yeah, let's start with the pros. Firstly, I like the packaging. I think it stands out enough from other palettes that I have in my collection. It stands out from NARS. It sort of looks interesting, but not sort of tacky and not bulky. Like it's still fairly sleek. It's quite sturdy. It's got a really good size mirror. I can use this mirror to see my whole face. I can literally do my whole makeup in it. And the good thing is as well, it sort of holds where you put it. So if you want to put it on your table and use it, you can do that. Or if you just like me and want to hold it, you can do that as well. So it's a very functional palette. I definitely think for me, what makes this different from other NARS palettes is the inclusion of the sparkly formulas, the really sort of glittery formulas, and these more intense shimmer formulas. I don't recall many of those from the NARS past palettes, or I know they have some sparkly shades in their permanent range in their single eyeshadows, but they're not as sparkly as these from memory. So I feel like this is a little bit different and a little bit more fun than what we normally see from NARS. But I also think that the textural differences is what I love about this palette. I feel like the last couple of years in the beauty community, it's just been like color, 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 color. And I think color is fun, but I feel like a lot of brands forget to play with texture and different finishes of eyeshadows. And that's what I like to vary the most. I could have the most basic, boring brown palette, but if you have like mattes, satins, shimmers of different sort of opacities, metallics, duochromes, sparkly shades, pressed glitters, and all this kind of stuff in there, I feel like you can create such a wide variety of looks that can take you from the most basic, boring look all the way through to like party glam. And I feel like this palette does it. So we do have the mattes, which I feel like NARS have almost upped the quality of their mattes. I feel like these are maybe a little bit more pigmented than what I remember from them. They've always had nice and blendable mattes, but they're the kind of mattes that you have to build up a little bit more, whereas I feel like these sort of pack a punch when you first put them on. I do want to also say that when I swatched this at the start of this video, it didn't swatch very well, but if you apply this directly onto a primer, it is very dark. So some of them, even if they swatch sort of sheer and not that great, they apply on the eye really, really nicely. So yeah, so you have the mattes, you've got this sort of satin formula, so this orangey shade and even this dark shade down here where it's like a matte with a little bit of luminosity to it. And then you have the more traditional shimmers. So these ones, you know, they have a shimmery finish, but they're not like sparkly. Then you have these two shades here, which are like topper or layering shades. So they're shimmers that you can use on your own, but they're sheer. So if you apply them over other things, you can sort of see the color underneath, but it sort of changes the finish and the color of what you layer it over. And then you have these two sort of chunky shimmers. So these aren't as intense as like the sparkly shades, but they pack a lot more of a sort of sparkly punch than these more traditional shimmers. And then of course you have the new sort of sparkly ones that are really full on sparkles. So I feel like this has so much variety in the texture that I love it. I'm obsessed with it. It's a palette that I'm very excited to use. But overall, I love the split of nudes and color and the different textural elements. And of course, the formula. Now, the formula is not going to be for everyone. If you love NARS eyeshadows and NARS formulas in general, you'll probably be really impressed by this. But if you're the type of person that likes to take like a glam light palette and use a bright purple and have it lay on your eye and just like look really intense, this is not going to be for you. It is a more pared down formula, especially with some of the shimmer shades. But for me, this is a palette that a lot of people can reach for and get a nice look out of. When I think of those really intensely pigmented palettes, often they can be really hard to wrap your head around or practice using because it's sort of like all or nothing. Whereas these are a little bit more forgiving. They blend really nicely, so there's not much effort that you have to put into it to make it look good. This formula is definitely better for beginners, but also people with any textural issue around their eyes. Like if you've got dermatitis or texture or dryness or any like fine lines around your eyes, this sort of formula will glide over and minimize that texture, whereas some other eyeshadows that I've tried that aren't as sort of high quality as these tend to emphasize the texture. So yeah, I love the formula of this. I feel like it's really easy to work with and it gives you really nice effects on the eye. I do have to say though that this sort of sparkly formula, like I mentioned before, you can get a variety of different effects from it. So from twinkly topper through to pat it on with your finger to make it a little bit more intense, all the way through to applying it over glitter glue so it really grips to the eye, and then maybe even using your finger to sort of brush it on a little bit. So I don't feel like those formulas are sort of beginner friendly, because you do need to know certain techniques and have other products, so like glitter glue for example, to really get the wide variety of how you can apply these. But I really like them. I think they're really fun and I think they're really, really gorgeous, and they're perfect for a Christmas palette. I feel like it's great to wear to a Christmas party, and I feel like this palette can take you through to like boring work, through to, you know, weekend fun, through to going out in the evening, to partying, to whatever you want. I feel like this palette can sort of do it all. So I really, really dig this. In terms of cons, some people will say the price point is a con, 84 Australian dollars. I'm not sure what it is in US dollars, but I'll have it on the screen. It is quite pricey, but that's NARS for you. And I feel like for NARS prices, having this much variety in a 16 pan palette for that price, it's actually pretty good. So I don't think that's a con, but for some people it will be. My personal con for this, and the reason why it's not a perfect palette, is two reasons. The first thing I don't like about the color story is this corner here. Now, I was quite excited for the greens. I love a grungy green, but these are not exciting grungy greens. And even though you have a matte and a shimmer, they're pretty much the same tone and they give that same effect on the eye. This tone is also very similar to the brown and also really similar to this dark plum. So I don't feel like you needed all three, because they're going to do the same thing on the eye. And the nuances are going to be so minor that it's really not going to be that big a deal. So like yesterday when I did apply this sort of all over the lid, whether I applied this or this or this, the minute nuances you probably wouldn't really notice all that much. It looks like a dark smoky color. So I feel like this corner is too redundant and it looks like there's variety there, but it's sort of deceptive. It's also disappointing because I love my grungy greens and these just don't really cut it for me. You can see, again, these all have that same sort of vibe. You can see that if you put them on and blend them out or apply them subtly, they're pretty much gonna do the same thing. And I feel like this is disappointing to me. The dark green is way too dark for me anyway, for all over the lid. And so I don't understand why they put this really dark shimmery green in there when, again, it looks really smoky. It doesn't add like a sort of beautiful jewel tone effect to the eye or like an olive green. It just adds smokiness, and it's too much darkness in one palette in my opinion. So I say that I love grungy greens, and what I would have preferred to see is something similar to what's in the Melt Gemini palette. Again, they do have some dark greens here, but you can see that they made the shimmery green a lot more vibrant, so it adds some brightness to the eye. I don't really see the point of having a really, really dark shimmer. For me anyway, I just don't really use it. And you can see that these have that sort of grungy green effect, but they're just brighter and a little bit more fun. So if I compare them to these, you can see that they are very different. And it also highlights how the NARS ones all have a smoky base. I don't mind having 4 dark shades in a palette, as long as they have such different tones that you can sort of see yourself using them for different reasons. For me, I think they only needed maybe 2 of these. The rest feel really redundant. And in a 16 pan palette, I feel like that's too much similarity. The second thing I would have liked to have seen is maybe a few more transition colors. So they could have easily removed a couple of these and added in a few more transition colors. I am finding myself reaching for the same transition color every time I use this palette. It would have been nice to maybe have a peachy toned one. I also miss sort of a cream color to set my base, but I do understand that that is very limiting when it comes to different skin tones. So if you take out the cream matte, all of a sudden it does open it up to more skin tones. So I'm totally fine giving up that and just using a face powder to set my base. But I would like to have seen maybe another highlight shimmer shade in a different tone, and maybe another sort of transition-y mid-tone shade, because I feel like I just keep reaching for those crease and then highlight, and they're the only two that I keep reaching for that purpose. So I would have liked more of this and less of this personally. But like I said, I'm really glad I've got this palette. It is probably one of my favorite palettes of the year, and it's a fun palette, and it's sort of made me reappreciate NARS. Not that I've stopped appreciating them, but I do think some of their products are bang on, and this one is fantastic. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.